Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Tech Sheck, episode 18. Getting on with our next guest. Well, I got lucky this time, and I was able to find somebody with a really cool track record in Pakistan. His name is Muneeb Maayr. And guess what? He started Daraz.pk, made it a success, and then decided, I need to do something around Urdu content and that helps people in Pakistan. And with that, I'd like to introduce Muneeb Maayr, the founder of Bykea.com. Hi, Muneeb. How are you today?
Hi. How's it going?
Going really well. Glad to have you with us today.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here.
Well, our pleasure. So Muneeb, in the form of Tech Check, let's dive right in. So the first thing we wanted to understand, what is Bykea? What is this all about? Hearing a lot about it.
Well, think of Bykea as a hybrid between an Uber and a FedEx and a Instacart, but it runs on the network of motorbikes. And the reason why we chose motorbikes as a platform is that if you're in Pakistan, the likelihood is that you're probably going to move people on a motorbike. There are actually 4 to 5 times as many motorbikes in Pakistan as there are four-wheeler cars. And you'll move a pizza on a motorbike as well. But not just that, you also move payments, because if you're delivering anything, you're most probably going to be accepting payments in cash. So it'll be cash on delivery. So,
Right.
so not only payments, so the plan was to leverage the high density of motorbikes in urban centers in Pakistan and make them a very powerful network for a multitude of things.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a great idea, Muneeb. And now that I think about it, during my own visits and interactions with Pakistan, you do see the predominance of motorcycles and, just the general inconveniences that you have. In my personal experience is like, oh yeah, वो driver को भेजना है वो उठाने के लिए, driver को उसके लिए भेजना है उठाने के लिए. There's one driver in the house at 4 different directions to go. So it seems like you're solving for an interesting problem here. Well, moving along these lines, so you and I had a little bit of a conversation about this. So you said, Muneeb, I want to create something that's Urdu driven and has Urdu content. Help me understand that better. मुझे ये समझाओ थोड़ा कि motivation क्या थी आपकी इसके पीछे?
I mean, listen, the reality is like, we're all burgers. You're a burger, I'm a burger as well, right? It's just that you're in the US and I happen to be in Pakistan, right? But the reality is we grew up in households where our सारी education was in English, right? And we are the privileged 10% of the country who has access to higher education. But if you look at the population of the country, it's about 220 odd million people. 20 million of them who can comprehend English. So what I sort of, prior to Bykea, I led an e-commerce business called Daraz. Really trying to hyper scale that. I kind of recognized that everything we were doing it in English. And of course, you can say India mein bhi to yahi ho raha hai, right? But listen, India is a bad example for e-commerce or really for any tech app, right? A good example, on the other hand, would be China, or for example, Vietnam, or across the border in Iran. Iran में Play Store नहीं है Android का. Iran में उनका अपना cafe bazaar है, जहाँ all the products there are in Farsi, right? So Pakistan and India are unfortunate that the people in the subcontinent can't search and type in their own language. So suddenly, like they get out of like tier 3 towns in the country, and then they've got to learn Urdu or Hindi. And then they get into like, college, and then suddenly they have to learn English. And you're expecting them to transact and communicate and chat in English. Sure, the 10% of the audience that has had access to that kind of education will make it through. और वही लोग हैं जो कि IT export भी कर रहे हैं, back offices भी चला रहे हैं. And of course, there'll be great like plantation workers for all the big tech companies around the world, right? Across continents. at a much cheaper cost. And frankly, that's what I did when I first came back from the US as well. I did that for about 7 years. But if you are really to grow tech and the adoption of tech within your country, you've got to enable people to communicate with one another in their own language. और पाकिस्तान में बहुत बड़ा hurdle है कि उर्दू कीबोर्ड में कोई टाइप भी सर्च नहीं कर सकता. That's not the case in Iraq. That's not the case in Saudi Arabia. That's not the case in any country that has developed or advanced. So it was very important to take a stab at it because no one was taking a stab at it. No one was trying to address the larger demographic, right? उनको कहाँ तक छोड़ा हुआ था सिर्फ मोबाइल टॉप अप्स पे जो टेलकोज उनको बेसिकली मार्केट किए जा रहे थे या शैम्पू के सैशेस एफएमसीजी बेचे जा रहे थे, but nothing that was enabling them for technology. And so we thought, listen, let's start with the cities. Let's start with the two assets that they have. They have a motorbike, they have a smartphone, and let's enable some of them to come and become gig workers. And let's make not just the driver app in Urdu, but also the customer app in Urdu, because that's the customer base that we need to scale on. So we literally became one of the first major apps in the country that is in Urdu. In fact, we are probably one of the most frequently used product in the country, and it's predominantly used in Urdu. And I'm not even talking about an Arabic font in HTML. I'm talking about the Nastaliq, Urdu ki Nastaliq font. That's what our app is used in.
Very cool, very cool, very interesting. और बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हो मुनीब, ये हम थोड़ा सा, और मैं आपके सामने बैठा हूँ, हम इसका थोड़ा सोचते नहीं है कि हम अंग्रेजी सेंट्रिक है. हालांकि you're right, 20 करोड़ हमारे लोग जो हैं अंग्रेजी सेंट्रिक नहीं है. So I really like the thinking process and what you're doing. And it's very interesting you mentioned that, because I've had a lot of interaction with Turkey and Iran, and I've seen, you're right, those people are very, very keen and work very effectively in their own languages, yet they still have the modernities and the Western conveniences that are required. So kudos, that's great insight and input. So building on that, Muneeb, what's the real ask for the diaspora, right? I mean, I know, and you know why I'm doing this show, we discussed it. मैं तो चाह रहा हूँ ना यार कि पाकिस्तान के साथ और ज़्यादा लोग engage हो और पाकिस्तान की अच्छी चीज़ें देखी जाएं. So what's that, in your opinion, and ask, what can we as diaspora do?
देखिए मेरे ख्याल में we're coming to the inflection point in Pakistan as well, where finally capital is beginning to get deployed to build products for the country itself, right? And reality ये है कि हमारे पास we have people with a lot of fervor and a lot of perhaps technical talent in Pakistan, but not the exposure that the diaspora has had, for example. I mean, one of the reasons why I am perhaps even successful in Pakistan is that I've dabbled my feet on both sides, right? So I think it's super important, kind of like the inflection point India had about maybe a decade or a decade and a half ago. That inflection point is coming about in Pakistan. And, inshallah, you'll see basically we're also going to raise a Series B. It'll be a sizable Series B for this part of the geography. And it will hopefully pave the path for many more Series A and Series B fundings for local products to be made. And I think, what better would it be for the diaspora to come and either do a fellowship or come back and basically come help build something which will be meaningful. Because ultimately, listen, I mean, I think all of us, we reach a certain stage in our lives where we have a certain level of success, but then we want to do something meaningful, right? And I think we are hopefully going to be laying the foundations for a meaningful product which is used at scale and which is supported by very sound investors globally.
Oh, that's great. No, that's great. And it's interesting, Muneeb, because you touched on something that's also very near and dear to myself. And I think I'm smelling a lot of that here too. Amongst my friends and certain people that I talk to, there's very much that passion कि यार कुछ करें यार, हमें बहुत कुछ मिला अपने मुल्क से और हमें कुछ करना चाहिए, because we can't just sit on the sidelines and see what's happening and hope that it gets better. We have to actually engage. So really cool. The last question I have for you, Muneeb, is something, and again, for a lot of us who aren't in Pakistan, you've done this journey and you've done it multiple times. Any words of wisdom or advice for someone new who wants to come and approach this?
So I think if you are good at mapping things out and documenting, um, take that expertise and leverage that expertise. आपको technical talent पाकिस्तान में मिल जाएगा, लेकिन वो communicate नहीं कर पाएगा, या they won't be able to build things on their own or finish things or market them or make them look glossy enough for it to be a, for it to be a global product. So I think one thing that the diaspora has is you have the exposure to build global products and products that can perhaps also be made out of Pakistan, right? So I think, I left the US long ago, almost in 2004. So I've been back a while. But I think all of what you all have is you have all the knowledge and exposure to know what has worked in the West and to figure out how to, particularly post-COVID, leverage a remote labor pool that may be able to build things that can be sold and packaged and marketed by you. Phil Knight ki kitab hai, Shoe Dog, right? He's the Nike guy, right? And he keeps saying that Nike is a marketing company, क्योंकि जूते तो उसने पहले भी जाके जापान से ही जाके लेके उनको repackage करके brand करके बेचा था. So I think, one thing that you guys have learned is that you've learned how to basically, process things and sell them, right? But you will be able to find some level of wage arbitrage in Pakistan, and using leveraging that labor pool in Pakistan would be a great advantage.
It's great insight, and it's something to definitely think about. And I think what we're also trying to get people more comfortable with is that a lot of people have a fear of the unknown and the systems and the way things work in Pakistan. And that's something I think people like yourself really need to lead the pack on, right? And helping them understand and saying, look, it's not that big of a mystery. It's something different, but you can overcome this. And I think it's really important that people like yourself, again, continue to provide that guiding light.
देखिए मैं आपको एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल देता हूँ, ठीक है? अब a few hundred years ago, जब Europeans उठ के random, geographies में गए, they went and things weren't seamless. Trade was not seamless, but they went in and said, we're going to make it happen. We're going to make this trade happen. We're going to go back and trade in our geographies. And I think that's the attitude. It's the explorer attitude you have to keep, because if you're going to get frustrated by going into an emerging geography, even though you may have grown up and you go and you get frustrated by it, you will not be able to trade. You're in a great position to trade because you can speak both languages.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Good insight there, Muneeb. And as always, Muneeb, as we're coming up at the end of our time for Tech Sheck, first of all, I really wanted to thank you, and I wanted to wish you all the best in your future endeavors. May you and people like yourself continue to flourish and be successful. This is something really great for Pakistan. Me personally, from a diaspora perspective, really enjoy seeing these things, and I love talking to people like yourself and learning more. So with that,
thanks so much.
Thank you very much for joining us today. To our audience, thank you very much for supporting us. We're getting really, really big here. I can't keep up with the volume of episodes that we have to put out. Keep following us, keep liking us, keep sharing us. We hope this story continues to penetrate across Pakistan and to our diaspora. And with that, thank you, Muneeb. Thank you, audience. Allah Hafiz.